Well, welcome back to the 10-7 podcast, unless Andrew wants to rename it something else.
Nah,
All right, the 10-7 podcast. We are here today with Dr. Jerry DeVane. We're here to talk about a little bit of his career and his life. He's had a big impact on Bradley County EMS, which is where we're coming to you from. And we've had some people from the service come up with some questions they'd like to ask you, and Andrew's come up with some questions, and myself included. Um, Andrew, you want to go ahead?
yeah, sure. First off, thank you for being here. I know you don't really like talking about yourself for however long it takes for us to kind of go over your life, but we appreciate you coming in today. First off, where'd you grow up? What's your childhood like?
I was born in South Georgia and moved to Memphis at age 5 and grew up in Memphis, the area of Whitehaven, one of 3 boys, small house there, like 1,200 square feet or so. We remodel it daily with our activities in the house
Fair enough.
and went to Whitehaven High School. My brothers had big shoes there at Whitehaven. I was always striving to fill those big shoes and see if I could live up to the DeVane boy image. But, it's easy life. Growing up was out on the, you know, sidewalks, playing in the front yards, going in the woods. Nothing like today's world where you can't walk outside unless you have a flak jacket on. So
What what did your parents do?
he was a motorcycle scout in World War II that went behind enemy lines to find troop strengths. He was wounded, came back home. He went through several jobs, but one of the things that he did with his GI Bill was he got his pilot's license. He intended to be a crop duster. Um, my mom put the nix to that after he took her up flying. But as a part of getting his pilot's license and being in the military, he qualified to take an exam to be in the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, and he was an air traffic controller for 25, 30 years. Was the first controller in Memphis, I think, that retired without a medical. um, but he had a good career. Saw a lot of things change, helped with some of those things, and he provided a good living for us. We didn't live extravagantly, but we had everything we needed. My mom was um, a home maker. She was a large lady, about 6 feet tall, and she could keep 3 boys straight, of which I'm probably the smallest. Um, so we had a great time in Memphis. Memphis deteriorated a little bit along the way. So when it came time to go into practice, we looked elsewhere, and East Tennessee provided our opportunities.
What what'd you use medicine? Why did you want to go to med school?
Why did I want to go to med school? Well, I'll tell you the truth. Have a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering.
Oh, okay.
And so med school was not on the horizon until about the junior year in our electrical engineering classes when we were enlisted by the University of Tennessee Health Science Center to do some work on sampling of EKGs. So,
Okay.
back in those days, there were no digital footprints of EKGs. There were no digital interpretations. So we did the initial sampling to convert the analog EKG into a digital variety. So
Wow.
as a part of that, my wife and I both decided that sitting in a cubicle and dealing with punch numbers and paperwork all day long was really not for us. And we both decided that we'd try to get in med school. So as juniors in electrical engineering, we added on courses to our major in order to be able to qualify to take the MCAT. And Both of us did. Both of us went to med school, and the rest is here today, I guess.
Did what was med school like for you?
Well, med school for me was no, I wouldn't call it easy. It was a lot more straightforward because I had a note taker. Um, Actually, my wife was 6 months ahead of me in med school, so she took notes on all her classes, and I had her notes and my notes, and then we had a class note taker. So we had notes from three different areas that I could study. That made it a lot more straightforward. She had it a little rougher because she was forging a pathway.
Right.
Jeez. So where did you end up doing residency?
I did a residency in Memphis at the downtown hospital. It's now called the Med, but back then it was the John Gaston, and we received all of the trauma from downtown areas and in the areas inside the Beltway, I guess you would call it, in Memphis. So we saw a lot. As a part of my residency, it was actually before the days of emergency medicine residencies. As a part of my residency, I ended up doing extra time in the ER because we were short on supervising residents for the ER. So I ended up doing, 6 months a year in the ER, which was, quickly became my favorite thing to be doing.
Mhm.
My actual residency was in internal medicine. And then right at the end of my residency is when the emergency medicine residencies really started to take off. So I came here after that. Was in the ER here for 10 years, and then I challenged the boards in emergency medicine and was able to pass those. So I guess I stuck with it.
What do you think made you find more interest in the emergency room than, let's say, the floor being a hospitalist?
Well, the ER was a fast moving,
Yeah.
um, very environment where you saw tons of different stuff
Mm.
and were able to intervene very quickly and try to stabilize people in order to get them ready to be admitted to the hospital. And I like that environment. I always like critical care.
Yeah.
So critical care was the primary event in the ER. And so that was a no brainer for me. I always like to say, if you're ADHD, then ER is for you. I definitely am ADHD.
Yeah. I can imagine working in the ER in Memphis was not exactly the safest place in the world to work. Was there any times that you felt like maybe you're, I don't know, I don't say, but your life was in danger? Were there any sketchy situations that really,
Well, the day that the drug addict carved a 21-inch slice down my back was a
oh,
little bit of a um,
Dang. Yeah.
anxiety provoking experience. Although, I wasn't anxious through any of that. It was a young lady, and she was cursing me while I was sitting in triage, trying to triage 85 patients that were waiting in the lobby. And I told her, you're just going to have to step outside. And when you calm down, you might be able to come back in here. And stood up, walk out the door, turned my back on her. Never do that.
Mhm.
And she had a straight razor in her purse and pulled that out and slashed me down the back as she pushed me. And I thought, well, she showed me.
Yeah.
And then she ran by me, and out in the hallway, I saw her push a police officer that was out in the hallway. We had a police station in the ER in Memphis. And his shirt flew apart, and I saw blood. I was like, she cut him. And then I reached back behind, stuck my hand right inside my scrub top, pulled it back, and blood there. Instead of handing in her chart, I just turned to the right and started going down the hallway toward the back because I knew I was going to need stitches or something, and saw one of our male nurses coming up the hallway, and he was always happy and grinning. he said, "Hey, doc, how you doing?" I said, "Hey, Henry, I think I've been stabbed." And he was like laughing, ha, ha, ha. And he went by me and he turned and looked. Next thing I know, he hooked my arm, he dragged me down the hallway toward the resuscitation room,
Yeah.
which was a bad place to go into because things happened too fast in there. But I managed to overpower him, get him to take me in the suture room where they sewed me up. I got to go back to work. Police officer got 2 weeks off with pay. So that was made me feel like the ER was real. I was in the middle of the police drawing a pistol on a guy that was holding a knife. I was sitting at the desk. Police officer to my right, guy with the knife to my left, guns out, and I'm like, "Whoa, it's not the place to be." So
Yeah.
there were a lot of things that happened. While I was in the ER in Memphis, we had 2 fire and police strikes where there were no police on the street. There was National Guard on the street, but there were no police officers there. And I think every National Guardsman that I saw, and they were all armed, were terrified because of the
Yeah.
way downtown Memphis was. And
One thing before we move on, I thought of another question. Having had so much experience and going back so far in your residency program and the emergency room and stuff like that, do you see a difference in the utilization of emergency rooms compared to back then to now?
I think the utilization is very similar. The city hospital had more people that had neglected health care, so they didn't have primary care physicians, so their health care was pretty sketchy. So we saw a higher level of acuity at the city hospital back then. But I think it's basically remained the same. There are people that don't have primary care that use it for their primary
Right.
care, and then there are people that obviously need you the most. And
Right.
hopefully, the primary care stuff that you do helps to um, maintain your presence so you can be there for those people that really need you.
Okay.
Did you have any mentors or people that you looked up to in med school or in residency?
Well, I think our chief of medicine was well known uh, in medical circles back then. His name was Gene Stollerman, and he was a guy that could walk into a room with a patient. He did this all the time because we would bring patients to him at what we call morning report, and he would question the patient and he would listen to them. He would take out his stethoscope and listen to them. And I never saw him fail to diagnose somebody without any lab work, without any ultrasounds, x-rays, you name it. And I think that taught all the residents that were in my group a lot about how to do hands-on diagnosis. And that's a little bit of a lost art these days because we've got so many more modalities that we could use and do use a lot in the ER.
Yeah. I feel like we're pretty reliant on lab work and imaging now. Well, I hesitate to ask you this because I'm sure you've been asked it 100,000
Never,
times.
I'm sure.
I don't know. This one I'm sure you've been asked definitely more than once.
At least here.
I'm probably here alone. You talk about Elvis residency.
So, I wasn't really a resident. I got involved with the Elvis thing. I was a senior student. We were doing our last 6 months, and a part of that was that you did what were called acting internships. And those were your choice of specialty that you wanted to do your acting internship in. And I was actually doing a GI acting internship with a group out at the Baptist Hospital in Memphis that were well known. And, initially that's what I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to be a GI doctor. And I was just happened to be on call, spent the night in the hospital when you were on call. And I had spent the night up all night long and I was bushed, I would say. And so I was right at changeover time. I was headed for the showers. I was going to get a shower, and then I was going to have to go to rounds because it didn't matter if you were up all night, you were there for rounds too. So I was headed to get a shower, and I heard this call for, and I can't remember if it's, I think it was Emory House that they used to call um, for the ER. And for the whole month that I'd been there, I'd never heard that ever called the ER, because they had ER people down there, and they had residents from the private hospital down there, so they never called for any additional help. And I thought, no, 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 you're tired. You stink. You need to go get a shower. I kept walking a little ways, and then I saw the chief of medicine at that hospital come running by with two security guards. And I thought, this might be interesting. Got to the ER. They opened the doors and went to go in. Two big burly city cops at the door. And I tried to look as mean and nasty as I could so I'd get by them and get in the room. So I managed to squeeze in the room, wall to wall people, a room about this size with maybe 50 people in it, which is not atypical for things in the ER. Sometimes you're overloaded with people that you don't need. And I got in the room and I was like, wow, I'm not, I'm not going to get involved in this. But then I decided, man, I came all this way. I'm going to do something. So I saw a guy over there pumping on the chest and eased my way around the wall, came up behind him and said, "Do you need relief?" And he said, "Sure, man, take over." So I got up and started pumping on the chest of the individual that was there. And I was from Whitehaven, which was adjacent to Grace, where Elvis lived. When I was a kid, he had booted us out of several places that we were in order to rent the place. So I knew what he looked like. So I stood up, started pumping on this guy's chest, and I looked down at his countenance there. He was intubated and said, "That guy looks like Elvis Presley." I didn't say that out because I'm an intern. Interns are seen and not heard. Pumping along, looked down, he had this little necklace on that said TCB with a lightning bolt on it. And that was Elvis's motto, taking care of business. And he would give those emblems out to people that he knew. I thought, wow, he's wearing a Elvis necklace. And kept pumping away.
Big fan.
Looked around the room and saw Elvis's private doctor pacing at the foot of the bed. And thought, that looks like Elvis's private doctor over there. Looked across toward the doorway where I'd come in, and his private duty nurse that always took care of him was standing at the door, weeping. And finally, the chief of medicine, who was kind of running the code, said, "Well, where'd y'all pick this guy up?" The paramedics, who had done a bang-up job, by the way, said, "Elvis Presley Boulevard. What do you think?" And they were like, well, he said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "This is Elvis Presley, man." And so I'm like, "Well, I'm going to shut up and keep on going." So, and he was probably dead before he got to the hospital. But as I kept on keeping on, his private doctor didn't want to stop. And we kept on for about 40 minutes. And I was in a lot better shape back then, so I could do 40 minutes of CPR on somebody. And finally, it got called. So, yes, I was there. No, I didn't have anything to do with it other than I was the chest thumper. Now you have Lucas, but I was Lucas back then.
That's all right. What was the best advice that you received throughout med school and residency?
Shut up and study. I don't know. I think med school is a lot self-motivated. Sometimes you get in study groups, but my wife and I were obviously not well to do. So we were living on subsistence living. So we pretty much went home after we finished our classes for the day, had our bologna sandwiches for dinner, either bologna or salami. I got the salami, she got the bologna. And then we studied. And we lived in a $100 a month apartment building that was right downtown. We heard gunfire every night. So we didn't get much advice on the ways. It was a little bit of a surreal experience. When I look back, it's almost like it wasn't real, but it was. Yes. Well, we lived next to some old tennis courts downtown, and when we got some time together, we would go over. And she was a college tennis player, and I was like a brute, so we would hit tennis balls at each other for an hour. That would help to unwind us a little bit.
Here's an important question. Do you still like salami?
I love salami. My wife can't stand bologna. And the other thing, my parents always supplied us a case of Raisin Bran that we ate when we ate breakfast. And we ate this salami at dinner.
Yeah.
And in between, we would get a meal at the hospital somehow. But to this day, she can't eat Raisin Bran, and she can't eat bologna. But I can carry on.
But what drew you to medical correction?
For EMS, well, my first EMS call, I think, drew me in that direction. When you train, unless you do like my cohort here, Dr. Spencer, who is now the medical director of the EMS here at Bradley County, unless you have an opportunity to go out with EMS and participate in calls, you don't know. And that's kind of the way it was in Memphis. We didn't want to go outside the hospital doors because it was dangerous out there. But when I got to Bradley County, my first EMS call was a day that I was finished a shift, and Polk County EMS came in screaming over this guy that had been injured in a blast, a fireworks explosion over at Polk County. And he was burned. I was getting off. The other guy was there. They came in, gave us a report. We're turning around to leave. And I said, well, what's going on over there? And they said, there's a big explosion, lots of people injured. We got it back. And I said, can I go? And they were like, stopped, looked at me and said, well, yeah. So I jumped in the back of their unit and we took off. And it was quite a ride. I was not EMS accustomed then. And we went over to Welcome Valley Road, where there was an illegal fireworks factory at a place that was called a worm farm. The guy that we got was out cutting the grass when the blast went off. There were 10 other people in the factory, and all of them were killed. When I got there, it was obvious there was nothing else that I could do. But just seeing the difference in the carnage that EMS people face, and how much different it is from our little clean four-wall cubicles at the hospital, I thought, I need to get involved a little bit more in this. And I guess there was a paramedic here, one paramedic at the service at the time, who somehow got word that I'd gone out on calls. The next thing I know, he was talking to me about writing some protocols for him. And back then, I think that the EMS medical director was one of the surgeons in town, and it was something that they did in sort of as part of what they did. Didn't really get greatly involved. So he recruited me to write some protocols and come on board. It's just grown from there. Not from what I've done, but from what guys like you have done, because it was the desires of the paramedics and EMTs to push it forward that got me more involved and wrote more protocols and did more training. And, I decided then and there that the more scenes that I could go to, the better off I would be as a medical director. So, um, the paramedics and the EMTs are the ones that help the service grow.
I think I speak for everyone here that legacy is kind of carried on. We've had multiple medical directors that feel the same way, and it helps us knowing that we've got medical directors that care enough to see both sides of the same coin.
Well, I'll just say that you've got to push your medical director, not let your medical director push you. So the more you push them to help you with your skills and your expertise, the better the service will become. He can, as one person, can't in any shape or fashion be the medical direction police that can keep everybody in line. It's the service that grows itself with the direction of the medical director. So big shoes, mine were size 3s.
I think there would be plenty of people here that would also say that your influence here went way beyond directing the service.
I just came along at a time when, growth needed to happen. And there was a group of medics then that were all about growth. And, they just brought it forward. I like to say I was the signature on a piece of paper, and they provided the skills.
After taking on that role, were there any notable changes to medicine that you had to adapt to after seeing what field work was like?
You mean, did I have to adapt my ER skills or my EMS skills?
Both. I mean, what adaptations did you have to make after seeing what field work was like? I suppose.
Well, I mean, I think that I became a lot more patient with the EMS workers when they brought people in, because unless you have slithered through the back window of the car that's upside down in a ditch and found somebody that needed an airway that they couldn't get extricated, you just do not know what pre-hospital care is like. And, I think that it's valuable for a medical director to be out there in the field, seeing what you face so that they're a little more tolerant of the curveballs that you can get thrown at you. And they become a little more flexible. And I think it's great to have a group of protocols to go by, but they've got to be flexible, and you've got to be able to utilize them in a flexible way because situations vary, and it's hard to make everything fit into the same box.
Mm-hmm. There any notable calls that really stand out to you?
Which one of the 1,000 do you want me to tell you about?
I guess top ones that come to your head. I'm sure there's plenty of material there.
Well, I mean, I could list a bunch, but I guess the 1990 fog wreck, I was the first Bradley County unit on scene from the south side of the accident. So I became the de facto triage officer in an area where you couldn't see literally your hand in front of your face. That was a moment that kind of gets etched in your memory. I can't drive through there without getting a few chills, a lot of creeps, even today. And I'll bet you today that I could go out there and walk the length of the wreck and find some residue from the accident seen its health. My first EMS call, my first rescue call, extrication call, was one where a guy, once again at Polk County, was pinned under a road paver, pinned by his legs down the riverbank next to a tree just short of the water with the heater plate resting on his legs. And once again, I got to see people go above and beyond and just literally dig him out of a riverbank because they couldn't lift the paver because it was too hot. Airbags would just melt underneath it. And I rode him all the way to the hospital, and then subsequently he was transferred to Erlanger. He would come back every year on the anniversary date of that and find me and give me grief or thank me, really. So that was a call that sticks with me. But I've had multiple calls. There's not hardly a road in Bradley County that I can drive in without pulling up an EMS call that happened there.
Yeah. We got a Jada wanted me to ask you about your time at Katrina.
That was another experience. Katrina was one of those things where you had to improvise. I think the EMS crews here gathered up a whole bunch of supplies, hodgepodge of anything they'd get their hands on, from any source, medicines that they could get from the pharmacies around here, and they recruited me to go. I was not a good nose there. Anytime I would head on, and we drove down to Biloxi and set up the parking lot of a Vietnamese Catholic church that was about 2 blocks off of the ocean. And the whole area around was devastated. And so we started providing just basic medical services, and the paramedics were operating under my supervision. So they may have done more than they would normally do in the field. But we took care of, maybe 1,000 people down there. One thing that stands out at our time down there is what we call the miracle of pizzas. Have you heard that story?
Yes, they're told to ask them.
Yeah. So one day we're conducting our little clinic there. I slept with another paramedic on the site so we wouldn't get robbed. So we had this little screen tent, no sides, that we use as our clinic space. And it was getting to be lunchtime. And so Joe Blackburn was sent out to reconnoiter for food, go find us some food. So he disappears in one of the trucks. And apparently Domino's had sent like a mobile kitchen down there, and they were preparing pizzas for the workers. So he came back with maybe, a stack of boxes of pizza, maybe 10 or 12. I don't know however many it was. Pizza boxes with pizza. We were like celebrating. So we, as only EMS people could do, were chowing down, and we ate till we were full. It's getting late in the day. So we put the pizzas in, the leftover pizzas in a car, and I went to sleep. The rest of them went back to where they had some tents set up near a staging area. And the next morning, they came back. People started showing up. We'd ask them if they were hungry. They'd say, yeah. They said, would you like some pizza? So they go over and get a pizza box and give them some pizza. And we fed a bunch of people out of the pizza boxes that we had left over. And, all day long, we had pizza. And so the end of the day came, and this dog came wandering up. and we all felt terrible because we didn't have anything to offer the dog. And Davidson said, "You think there might be any pizza left over?" So he goes over and prowls through the pizza boxes, pulls out this box, and here's a whole pizza there. And so we fed the dog. So we've probably 20 or 25 people, and maybe 10 EMS workers, 10 pizzas. And to this day, we have no idea how that lasted, but we still call it the miracle of pizzas.
Especially knowing the EMS people eat first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you ask, well, would people eat cold pizza? Oh, yeah, it's a delicacy.
Do you have any regrets taking on working in an ER, being an ER dog, working for EMS?
Really, zero regrets. I might have done it a little differently had I to do it over again. I'd say my family probably got neglected some because of the fact that, I was out running around with my hair on fire doing EMS calls. It comes back to the big snowstorm that we had here in '93 when the power was out. Well, yours truly stoked up the fireplace in the basement with wood, and boom, I was out the door running around doing EMS stuff. So, my family probably bore the brunt of that. I think I remember one time they had a house fire. There were numerous people involved. I showed up, and they were going to transport some kids to Chattanooga. They had several, so I volunteered to go on an EMS unit. Well, it turned out that EMS unit turned out to be the old helicopter service, Med Flight 5. And they loaded two in the back of this helicopter. And I was supposed to be home to take up dad duties at like 5:30. And it was like 5 o'clock. And I was like, okay, 12 minutes down, 12 minutes back. That leaves me slack to get home. So I jumped on the helicopter and away we went. And they get to Erlanger, and everybody's been dealt with. So they shut the engines down on the helicopter. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no. And then they finally decide they leave. They get up in the air and they say, well, we need fuel. So we went to the airport to get fuel and sat down over there. And I'm going, oh no. So then they get fuel, they go to lift off, and they're lifting off, going out across the tarmac of the airport. And I'm like seeing liquid run down the backside of the helicopter, and I could see it out the back windows of the helicopter running off the edge. And I said, y'all smell fuel? And whoever put fuel in did not close the fuel door, so it was emptying fuel out as fast as it could. So they sat down in the middle of the airport down there, which causes I've got to fill out a bunch of paperwork. So suffice it to say, I got home about 9 o'clock. My wife was not very pleased. I think the EMS people put me off, let me out at the foot of my driveway and said, so long. So, and my truck, I remember it was a car wreck in Polk County that I had been to. I went out on the car wreck, and my truck was still sitting beside the road in Polk County. So I just gave my keys to somebody and said, if y'all get a chance, could y'all go get that? And they were like, yeah, we'll try to. So it came back the next day. So my family got neglected. I probably needed to pay a little closer attention.
I think it's easy to do in this line of work.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I think we're all guilty of that.
And you will be.
Yeah.
Just have to try to keep it to a reasonable minimum.
Yeah. This question is from Shane Ware. What medicine skill or piece of equipment do you think has made the biggest difference in out of hospital care over the past 10 to 15 years?
I think two skills that I can think of. First is the cricothyroidotomy. If you haven't been there, that's a skill that you can really make a difference in the appropriate environment. The other is chest tubes and chest decompressions. Equipment wise, I think your equipment continues to improve. I think the life packs with the external pacers. You've got Lucas now. I still don't like it. Yeah, that's okay. I'm an old guy. And then the units are better. I think they're a little more solid. You feel a little more protected in them. Probably not as protected as you think you are, but I think the equipment has gotten better as time goes along.
If you had the opportunity to give a new medical piece of advice that you thought would make the biggest difference in your career, what do you think that would be?
I think I would tell medics to listen to their patients, because the patient will give you the information you need to take care of, and be flexible in utilizing your skills to provide them the best care that you can.
This one's coming from Jada.
I might have to talk to Jada.
Yeah. She had a lot of questions. If you could have a conversation with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Gosh, got the easy ones.
Yeah.
A conversation today with anyone. And is this a question related to, further my knowledge, or finishing up unsaid thing?
I think it's just whoever you want to talk to in any aspect of your life.
There's a guy named Al McCollum that I was on scene when he passed away, that I wish I could resurrect him and his enthusiasm and skill levels to help to teach you guys, because he was one that was a powerful voice in EMS back when he suffered his loss.
Yeah, we still got a plaque of him in the building somewhere. I think it's in the front office.
It's in that hallway between the front door and the inside door.
Jada also asked if you had, obviously outside of the pizza miracle, had seen any unexplained miracles on scenes or in the ER.
I don't think that anybody realizes what a miracle is until they see somebody that has a cardiac arrest that's brought back. If you've been on scene where you brought somebody back and they wake up, that truly is a miracle of itself. And that, even though we'd like it to be more frequent, it's a relatively rare thing to happen. But that's semi-miraculous. It's a miracle that I'm still sitting here today with all the stupid things that I've done on scene.
This one's actually coming from Dr. Spencer. What's the best piece?
I want to change my
Yeah. It's true. It's in the script.
We'll change the Blazer. I want to know more about this truck that's been famous. Everyone talks about Dr. DeVane, blue Blazer.
Well, it was Blazer. It's a Suburban.
Suburban. I'm sorry. I'm hurt. Yes, this is Suburban.
And this wasn't a blue Suburban. This was a blue Suburban. I mean, you see blue. This blue really almost glowed. And so I had lights and siren on this baby, and it could travel. So that was not the first EMS equipped vehicle that I had, but it by far was the most durable. I put it through a lot.
I guess I got one more question. I guess for everybody, what's 3 sets of advice you can give me? Right, I'm a new guy. I embody you, obviously. I'm a doctor today because of you. What I'm as gung ho as you get, right? I'm the miniature version of you 20, 30 years ago. What would you tell if you could start with right now? What's 3 pieces of advice that you would give?
First is don't ever look behind you. Always look ahead, because there are going to be new things to come on the horizon, new things that can be done in pre-hospital, and always look ahead and do your best to provide the skills necessary for these guys to be able to move forward. The second is be flexible. Holy cow, there's just no shoe that fits everybody, and no set of protocols fits every scene that you come upon. In fact, some scenes have to have multiple protocols involved in them, and they don't just come one after the other. They intertwine with each other. So be flexible with your evaluation of calls that go out. And the third thing is to show up on scenes. And I know you do. And when you're on the scene, provide an augmented skill set. And that way, if they need help, by gum, jump in there and give them help. And that might be go get the stretcher, or I need a backboard, or but it might be, I need help with this cricothyroidotomy. And so provide the help that they need. And then after all the dust settles, then, lift them back up when they need it.
Thank you. Back to the regular schedule.
I have one question for you. If you could change one thing about the EMS profession as a whole, not just Bradley County or Polk County, the EMS profession as a whole, what would it be and why?
Your pay schedule. I think EMS, in order to continue to attract people with good skill, needs to have a little bit better reimbursement for your activities. I know the ins and outs of taxes and government entities, bodies, but I think you need to be paid better. That was easy.
It was the easiest question to answer.
If there was one thing that you could tell your younger self now, what would it be?
Still on.
I'm glad I didn't hear that. If I could tell my younger self something, don't crawl into these places that you don't need to be in. Don't be down in trenches when the sides are falling in. Don't crawl in smoking vehicles whenever there are no fire trucks on the scene.
Yeah.
Maybe be a little more careful. Don't show up on police scenes and before the scene is safe. So be a little safer. I'm lucky to be here. The number of stupid things that I've done in my career would appall you, I guess.
Well,
I think we got some pretty stupid stuff.
I guess
This dude has some on this.
Yeah.
Got to rack up the number.
Well, you'll have to turn up the activity, catch up with me.
Well, top three stupid things you feel like nearly got killed. What do you think?
Well, the fog zone wreck was the first and probably maybe the biggest stupid thing that I've done. I showed up on the front end of the wreck going down the opposing lanes of traffic. So I was in the southbound lanes going northbound and zero visibility. That's not intelligent, but then when I got there, I initially second truck that was impaled at the back of the first truck that started the accident. And I could tell it was on fire off the rear end. But I didn't know that what was in the truck was explosive. So while I was up on the cab, there were these two guys that came out of the darkness and said, I would get out of there if I were you. And kaboom, the rear end of the truck blew off while I was up there. So that was pretty impressively stupid. But, you survive what you survive. And then I think me and my wife, there was a cave in down under South Lee Highway. They were tunneling under the highway through a culvert to replace a culvert rather than digging through. And there was a cave out in the middle of the highway, and a guy was trapped down there. And through this culvert that was maybe the size of this square base table, two of us crawling out through there, me and a paramedic, to go get this guy. And I realized once I was out in the middle of South Lee Highway under the road where I could still hear trucks going back and forth up, that I couldn't turn around in this culvert. There was no way to turn around and get back out if I needed to. And so I was going to have to snake my way back, dragging this guy behind us. I probably wasn't very smart.
What has been your favorite part of giving back to the community?
I just think seeing things get better. I mean, Bradley County has a reputation at the state level that is hard to maintain, but I'm thinking that with Dr. Spencer providing his skills here, that you can get back to that top of the heap in EMS where you belong.
And what advice do you have for leaders in EMS for training the next generation?
I think to keep it fresh. I mean, if you get stale and stagnant, then your skills deteriorate, and the level of the individual that wants to be an EMS goes down. And so they need to keep it fresh. They need to provide new skills as they can outline them. And, there are lots of things on the horizon that EMS could provide. So they need to become a little more progressive to help EMS get involved a little bit more to maintain the level of skills that we've got out there. I know I'm preaching to the choir over here.
Waiting to hear more. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? So I got the time here.
I think I've bored you enough. What do you think?
You always stay the medical director at Preston the whole time you were here. EMS has changed, fire changed through Madison and Jesse, but you always stay aggressive. Was there a reason for that, or is that where you originally started?
I think my first field call was an EMS call. My second field call was a rescue call. And to me, people that were entrapped and needed extraction were those that were the sickest. So that's why I desired to get involved with rescue. But not unusual for me with my big blue Suburban to be on scene first at a lot of places. So um, I think those are the sickest of the sick. And I don't know. I just felt some sort of burden that I needed to be there.
I share that feeling.
Good.
One more question.
Yeah.
If you had to give, I know we've asked for tons of advice today, but if you had to give some piece of advice, some piece of morale boosting conversation to a EMT basic, EMT paramedic who's out there and feels burnout, and how do they keep going in this field because of XYZ, what would your advice be to them?
I think that what everybody has to realize, you guys, is that the next patient you see may be the one that needs you the most. And that you can provide life saving in a scenario where somebody desperately needs it. And even though you think things are mundane, you're running all these non-emergent calls, you're transporting old medical directors from the hospital to the nursing home. The next call you get might be one where you can really impact somebody's life, lifelong. And so, never lose the fact that you have to be on top of your game at all times.
Well, Dr. DeVane, thank you so much for your dedication to your community, to your work, and to us. We'll never know the extent of what you've done for us. So thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Once again, I'm going to tell you that you guys push the medical director to do more. So don't quit pushing.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you being here today.
You bet.